The last passenger, the lost package that united two hearts. Sometimes, a single act of honesty can change the course of your entire life. Sometimes, the smallest decision can place you at the center of a mystery far bigger than you ever imagined. And sometimes, the people we meet by chance become the very people who transform our future. This is the story of Chuks, 29 years old. A young graduate who thought his biggest problem was unemployment, but who soon found himself caught between a wealthy family and a dangerous man whose secrets were finally about to catch up with him. It is a story about integrity. A story about courage. A story about justice. And proof that doing the right thing can open doors no one could ever imagine. Chuks was a graduate of microbiology. Tall, handsome, intelligent, and hardworking. Like many young graduates, he left university believing opportunity would soon arrive. But months passed. Applications were submitted. Interviews came and went. Yet no job materialized. The disappointment weighed heavily on him. As the eldest son of his mother, Chuks understood that his family depended on him. He could not afford to sit at home waiting. So when an opportunity arose to work at Fast Car Ride as a driver, he accepted it without hesitation. Fast Car Ride was a company that provided transportation at a cost to people who needed transportation. The company operates like Uber. Every morning, he drove through Lagos. Every evening, he returned the vehicle to the transport company. And every day, he reminded himself that dignity comes from effort, not titles. For months passed. Then came the evening that changed everything. It was a Wednesday. Around sunset, Chuks received a ride request. The pickup location was Blue Tip Company. The destination was House 2 Peanut Beach Estate, Lekki in the city of Lagos. The passenger was a young woman, perhaps 27 years old. Elegant. Well-spoken. Confident. The journey was smooth. When they arrived at the address, Chuks blinked. It was a huge mansion with solid gates. A two-story white house, CCTV camera, and gate that looked like it belonged to a governor. The woman alighted without a word. As she walked to the huge black gate, it swung open. A broad-shouldered man stood there. "You left home with a car," he said. "I'm sure that little rat, Harry, must have come again to take your car out to some crazy nightclub." "Brother Bolu, yes," the woman said, "Harry came to borrow it. But don't worry, all will be fine." Chuks listened to the conversation casually as he started the car and drove off. Later that night, while preparing to hand over the vehicle, he noticed a parcel lying on the back seat. Immediately, he remembered the woman from Peanut Beach Estate. She had been his final passenger. The package had not been there before she boarded. It had to belong to her. Because it was already late, he decided to return it the following morning. By 6 o'clock the next day, he was standing outside House 2 Peanut Beach Estate. When the woman opened the gate and saw the parcel, her eyes widened. "You found it?" "Yes," Chuks replied. "I thought it belonged to you." The woman checked the package carefully. Then she looked back at him in disbelief. It was indeed hers. Inside was $500. Money she had feared was gone forever. Many people would have kept it. Many people would have claimed they never saw it. But Chuks had returned it untouched. The woman smiled as she introduced herself as Mercy. The big-shouldered man who was with her yesterday also came out. She introduced him as Bolu, her elder brother. Both Mercy and Bolu jointly thanked Chuks. She handed Chuks $100 as a reward. Chuks took the gift with gratitude. And from that day forward, Mercy never forgot Chuks' honesty. More importantly, she became one of his regular clients. Whenever she needed transportation, she called Chuks. Neither of them knew that this simple act of honesty had just connected their destinies. Meanwhile, Chuks continued working at Fast Car Ride as a driver. Among his colleagues was Cliff. Cliff was driver at Fast Car Ride. A cheerful young man who shared many late-night shifts with him. Every evening after work, Chuks would meet his friend Cliff. The two young men often sat together at roadside food spots or small cafes. They would discuss their day, the strange passengers they had met, the funny stories they had heard, and the challenges of surviving in Lagos. One evening, Chuks told Cliff about the woman who had forgotten a parcel in his vehicle. The package contained $500, Chuck said. Cliff nearly dropped his drink. $500. Chuks nodded. Yes. And you returned it? Of course. Cliff laughed. You are an honest guy. Chuck smiled. Then, one afternoon around 3 o'clock, Chuks received another call from Mercy. She asked him to pick her up from Blue Tip Company. As soon as she entered the vehicle, Chuks noticed something was wrong. Very wrong. Her face appeared swollen. One side looked slightly reddened. It was as though she had recently been involved in a serious confrontation. For a moment, Chuks wondered if he should say anything. Perhaps it was none of his business. Perhaps she would not want to talk about it. The journey began. Mercy sat quietly in the back seat. The silence lingered. Finally, Chuck spoke. Are you okay? Mercy looked out the window. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she replied softly. Something happened. I was hit by my boyfriend. A pause followed. But I'll be fine. The answer explained everything and nothing at all. Chuck sensed there was more to the story. But he respected her privacy. Sorry, he said quietly. As they continued driving through traffic, Mercy suddenly pointed ahead. Please stop at that pharmacy. Chuck pulled over. She hesitated before speaking again. I know this isn't part of your job, but could you please help me get some pain relievers? My head is hurting badly. The concern Chuks already felt for her immediately grew stronger. Without hesitation, he entered the pharmacy. A few minutes later, he returned with the medication. He also bought bottled water. Mercy looked surprised. You didn't have to do that. Chuck smiled. Sometimes people need a little help. For the first time that afternoon, Mercy smiled back. A genuine smile. The kind that appears when someone feels seen. The journey continued. Neither of them realized that a quiet connection was beginning to form. That evening, Mercy sat alone inside her bedroom. The room was larger than many apartments. The mansion belonged to her father, Chief Jide Oni, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the state. Chief Oni had 2 children, Mercy and her older brother, Bolu. Mercy had studied accounting at university. After graduation, she joined the family business and eventually became one of the managers at Blue Company. From the outside, her life appeared perfect. Money, status, success, a respected family name. But appearances can be deceiving, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. Mercy had never been fortunate in relationships. Before Harry, there had been 2 other men. Both relationships had ended painfully. Both had left scars. And now there was Harry. The man who was supposed to be different. The man who had turned into another source of misery. Harry constantly demanded money. Huge sums. Again and again. He expected Mercy to use her position at Blue Tip Company to solve his financial problems. Whenever she refused, arguments followed. Whenever she explained that company funds did not belong to her, Harry became angry. That afternoon had been no different. Harry had appeared unexpectedly at her office. He demanded 5 million naira. When Mercy told him she could not provide it, his temper exploded. The confrontation left her shaken. And now, sitting alone in her room, she found herself asking questions she had avoided for months. Why was she still with him? Why was she tolerating behavior that made her unhappy? Why did she keep hoping he would change? Perhaps it was fear. Fear of starting over. Fear of disappointment. Fear of being alone. She was already 28. The thought of beginning another relationship felt exhausting. Maybe she should simply endure. Maybe things would improve. But deep inside, she knew better. As she lay in bed, another thought entered her mind. Unexpectedly. The image of a certain driver. Chuks. The young man who had returned her money. The man who had bought her medication without being asked. The man whose kindness seemed effortless. Honest. Responsible. Thoughtful. Caring. A small smile appeared on her face. Then she quickly dismissed the thought. What was she even thinking? He was merely her driver. And yet, as sleep slowly overtook her, the last image in her mind was not Harry. It was Chuks. And somewhere deep inside, a new possibility had quietly begun to grow. As the days went by, Mercy began calling Chuks more frequently. Sending greeting messages. Checking on him. Asking about his day. At first, Chuks assumed she was merely being friendly. But gradually, he began to suspect something else. Could Mercy be developing feelings for him? The thought made him uncomfortable. Not because he disliked her. Far from it. He admired her greatly. But Mercy was already in a relationship. Furthermore, she was his client. Business should remain business. There was also the matter of social status. Mercy was the daughter of a wealthy businessman. Chuks was a driver struggling to build a future. Their worlds were completely different. If he ever got married, he preferred someone from a humble background like his own. Someone who understood his journey. One evening, he discussed the matter with Cliff. As usual, the two friends sat together after work exchanging stories about their daily adventures. "You are overthinking it," Cliff said. "If she likes you, what's the problem?" Chuck shook his head. "There are too many problems. Such as, she has a boyfriend." "So what? She's my client." Cliff laughed. "Those are excuses." But Chuks refused to change his position. Soon, he began creating distance. When Mercy called, he kept conversations brief. When she sent messages, he replied casually. And whenever possible, he avoided accepting her ride requests. One evening, Chuks and Cliff were sitting in Chuks' room discussing their day. Cliff suddenly remembered an unusual incident. "You know," he said, "I picked up a female passenger yesterday. Her name was Tito. What happened? What is going to happen between Mercy and Chuks? And how will the affair between Mercy and Harry go?" The story continues in part 2. Watch out for part 2. Part 2 will be the concluding part of the story. Don't miss it.